So I'm really excited that actually, I think I've rediscovered this amp just as I was thinking of selling it.
Oh, 1, 2, 3.
So here's the thing, I've been talking about my 2-Rock for a long time. You know, here and there I'll say, oh, I've got my 2-Rock, but I don't play it. I'll probably move it on. And I moved on my Bloomfield Drive as well. And I'm embarrassed to say, and I'm owning up, hands up, that I've only just started playing in the mix, as it were, in the last month or two. And I'm learning a lot. So, although I sort of dabbled in it over the last couple of years, I didn't really seriously think, okay, I'm going to play to a backing track to sort of put on YouTube and therefore have to wring more out of my gear to make it sound the way I want. And also to figure out what is what when it comes to playing in isolation with your amp and guitar and pedals or in a mix. You know, what do you actually need for the tone to come through? Because that's something I've never really talked about, is before you talk about the tiny little nuances in tone, surely there is so much more to be said about just basically what can be heard, and it's more of a larger question than it is these lots of little micro questions. You know, when it comes to the frequencies that come through, you know, how much bottom end do you really want when there's a bass player and potentially other instruments that are filling up areas of the tone? How much brightness and how much mids? It's all a different question than when you're just playing and saying to yourself, oh, do I like the sound or not? So what I've found is a lot of the tones I've used in isolation to demonstrate something are not particularly useful in the mix. And that's something that's become more and more part of my videos recently, and will become more and more as I get more experienced and become better at playing in the mix and sort of discovering what's going on. So how does that affect me with the 2-Rock? Well, I didn't understand this amp. I kept saying to myself, I just want simple. Give me a 2-knob, 3-knob amp and I'll be so happy. And I still can be, by the way, because one thing I figured out, a lot of those amps are already sort of set to sound good in the mix. We'll make a video about that. I think it'll be interesting. But the 2-Rock has lots and lots of options. And I always thought, well, that doesn't sound as good as that. That doesn't sound as good as that. And then I'd sit here for half an hour tweaking before I made a video, and it would annoy me. And today I sat here and tweaked for half an hour with a couple of guitars, finding the sound that would work in the mix and starting to understand more about what is needed. So this amp offers you the ability, huge scope with your bass. Taking out bass is something I wasn't really thinking about before, but I am now. And because it's got a mid control, although you're taking out bass, it's not, your mids can still control some of that low mid frequency as well, that enables the tone to still have a heart to it, if that makes sense. You've got a presence control, a contour control, which after everything else I did, just finally tweaked the feeling and the sound. The 3 different gain structures, you know, the bright, mid and deep sort of switches. There's so much that is bloody helpful. So I think in a short space of time I've discovered, yesterday in a video I didn't make but will soon, how playing with my 63 Strat and other Strats through this was, once I understood what I wanted, was just brilliant. And today with this ES guitar, let's hear another couple of minutes of that, and then the rest of the video is going to be a bit more about how I set the amp to get what I wanted. So there's probably about 10 minutes of me showing you how I set it and why, which you might find interesting. And I'll see you after that. No pedals on. So that was with no pedals, and I thought what we'd do is go through the pedals, adding them one by one, actually in reverse order, from the Protein, which is last in the chain, the blue side, then the Centura, which is the clone, and then the Dominion Fuzz, which is like the seasoning added on top. But before that, I wanted to take you through a little bit of what I did with the amp for this particular setting and why. So you can hear I'm playing in the treble pickup. I've actually got the Veritone on position 2. So if it was in position 1, let's start there. What would it sound like? So it's a bit too shrill and high pitched. So this has got that slightly honkier mid thing, but way less bright top end, which is what I wanted. So I haven't often used the Veritone, but it is what it is. This is with the treble on, so let's turn off the treble. The bright cap, the bright switch. Back on. Just gives it that real zing and life to it, which I love. I've got the mids pushed up to about 2 o'clock, not the mid switch, the actual knob. Often if I'm playing, especially with a Strat, I would have had this back at more like 10 o'clock, which would sound like this. So, let me put it back where it was. Now, the bass I've got at before 10 o'clock even. If I push that up just to show you to about 2 o'clock. Too much, so I'll pull it back again to where it was. so it's not too wallowy. The gain I've got at just after 12. Originally I was trying to put it at more like 3 o'clock, which is like this. If I wasn't using pedals, I would actually set it there. It gives you a lot more dynamic range, but I don't need it. You'll find out in a minute. The master is on high at 2 o'clock. I find, although they say 2 rocks work great at low volumes, they work better at high volumes, but I've got an attenuator plugged in. I could actually tell you what decibels we're looking at. Okay, right now, without any pedals on, as the guitar was, so that was peaking at about 101, but mainly 98, 99. So loud, but my phone is quite close to the amp. It's not like in that pedal show where it's behind or Anderton's, it's in front. Okay, let's add, oh, actually, I decided, I was playing around with the backing track and I just wanted more atmosphere and more room sound, so I added more reverb. Originally I had it like back here. But then ended up with it more like here. Just like with Fender amps, it just adds so much to the whole sound and tone actually. And then the contour, I played around with this a lot. At the beginning I thought everything's a bit too bright, so it's on 1 now, but I actually started with it at about 9. But for the sound I was going for, and if I turned it up to 3 o'clock, it's just too bright then. So it's a bit like a presence thing, but it affects the feeling a bit more, I find. Right, let's put the blue protein in. No, actually, I think the core tone is coming from the Centura in the middle of the pedal, like the signal chain. So let's put that on first. So that's on now. I had actually the neck pickup set at about 6 in case I wanted to go there, and it sounded like so it's just got a really lively, big, it sounds massive in here with that clon on. And then I put the protein on. Let's hear what that does. So I find that the protein, it's just really a clean boost right now. You know, the amp sound is coming through the most, and the guitar, the way it's set. Yeah, we are in the correct position. And then this is really just boosting it even more. So you could keep it off a lot of the time and then add it in. I think the protein adds a bit of saturation and sustain though, which is great. Now, I'm going to put the fuzz on the way it was, which is basically full on. And we were here. Fuzz is the most important part. I think you could use, you know, different overdrive pedals, although this is what I've gone for today. But in terms of adding the character, that grit, that slight glassiness which you get with germanium fuzz, adds a bit of fullness back into the tone as well. I mean, if I whacked it up, I don't know what volume this is going to go to. If I put this on 10, so just roll back to 7. And there you go. This is what I get from this amp that I've only just decided to take advantage of. Because when I was playing with a Strat yesterday, although I haven't made a video with the Strat and the 2-Rock just now this week yet, the settings were completely different. And although it takes a minute, I've often said I want the simplest thing possible. And do you know what? For a lot of the time I do. But if I keep tinkering with the 2-Rock as I change guitars, I'll eventually know exactly where everything needs to be set anyway. And although it can be a pain in the arse being able to dial your way out of a tone, which is annoying when that happens, ultimately you get the options with the 2-Rock that I'm only just starting to realise I can take advantage of. I forgot to mention the gain structure. Let me turn everything off again, pedals wise, just take you through. I was in the lowest output, the blackface type of setting, and it sounded, as you know. If I go in the top setting, which is your default setting, back to the blackface setting. So the 2-Rock setting definitely has more in the way of mids, and the blackface setting has that more scooped vintage sound. Really, when you, especially with a Strat, you notice the difference more. But I can tell the difference in the playing as well. And then the middle setting, which is the more output. Blackface. And the 2-Rock setting. To be honest, with a humbucker you tell less of a difference, I find, because everything's more saturated and got a bit more gain as it is. But just in this case, as I played through with the track, I ended up on the blackface setting. So there you go, that's enough of me showing you sort of exactly what I did. So safe to say, actually a lot of what is on here is really useful. Not that you, I mean, you know, you can, whatever gear you have, you can make the most of it. I was having a chat with a friend of mine today about the Les Paul Junior and whether it's more limited or not than other guitars. It was a good argument. It went on for quite a long time. He says it's just as flexible and just as good, and a great player can get as much out of it. And I'm of the opinion that it's a great guitar, but you can get more out of other guitars. There's probably a middle ground between us, and philosophically we might even be in the same place. But is more? Sometimes. When it comes to trying to get the right sound in the mix, the 2-Rock just does it in a very specific way. Rather than prescribing to you the sound, like some of my amps do, by not giving you many knobs or not making them that useful, the 2-Rock lets you completely control what you're going to hear, which can be a nightmare. You can dial yourself out of a good tone, and I'm sure that's a headache a lot of people have. But when you get it right, you know, for what you want. Today I wanted this vintage, slightly brittle feeling trebly humbucker ES335 sound that I've heard on some records, and I loved it. Like, I enjoy playing that more than I have for a long time. So the Two Rock is staying, and it reasserts my confidence in Two Rock as a brand and why I would want one, and why I might look at others as well, you know, in future, for different reasons. Even just out of interest for the channel, if I can get hold of a different model, I'm now more interested in Two Rock again, because I can understand what I can do with the dials, the switches, and everything else. So I'm always on a journey, as you know, if you watch my channel. And I'll tell you what, next week I'll do another video or two like this with the Two Rock and a guitar in the mix, and show you how I set it and what I enjoyed. The next video after this will go back to my 63 Strat and the other Strats. I've been looking at them a lot this week to discover what it is I love about Strats. Something I found out this morning when I tried to play the 63 in the mix, but I'll save that for another video. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. Just to say, the pink Cherrytone Centura that you've seen in this video is being raffled for charity. You can find that raffle information in the description, and the money's going to Breast Cancer Now, a great breast cancer charity. Thanks for watching. See you next time.